after the Eric Garner thing happened over a frivolous law like selling loose cigarettes, he died over a sorry law over $6 a pack. Cigarettes. It's a $1 billion industry in New York City. For the taxes, and the city wants it, and they're going to make their cops go get it, and that's what that sorry law is what causes tragic consequences to end up happening. Now, if they would get rid of those laws, it'd be a whole lot better. So what Politics of John said, when I was talking to him one time, he said, because he's a cop, he said, look, what cops are going to have to do is they're going to have to choose what laws they decide to enforce, even though they are bound by law to enforce all laws. And I think some of this stuff is, like you've seen in New York lately, with the number of arrests and summonses going down. I don't think it's so much a work stoppage as it's, hey, I'm not going to ruin my life over a dumb-ass law. Excuse my language, but I'm not.
How dare you swear on a non-FCC regulated show?
Well, F me running.
Yeah. Let's see. Lucy, go right ahead.
Well, I will grant that I'm not a criminologist, and even criminologists debate why the crime rate went so far downward. I know it went more down in New York City, but like nationwide, the great mystery of why the crime rates went so far down is still being debated. But I just looked up some ACLU stats that they say are from the NYPD about stop and frisk, and over the past decade, you have numbers of totally innocent people, 82% a decade ago, 89, 90%, 87, 88. None of these numbers in the past decade are under 82% to totally innocent. And they're saying this comes right out of the NYPD's own reports. So, fundamentally, how many people are you allowed to pat down to get the job done? Obviously, crime was already going down a decade ago from the 90s peak insanity in New York City. But if it was ever necessary, this kind of tactic, is it really necessary now? Do you need to continue doing it just to make sure the crime rates never go up again? A lot of the time they were looking for weed. What they used to do is they used to trick people into displaying their weed, which was a more serious crime than just having it on you in New York City. I appreciate this idea that maybe if you're living closer with other people in a big city like New York, that you might need some different styles of policing and styles of living together. But I don't know if it's really that easy. I'm totally against it, but I think we probably already knew that already.
Peter, you're an admitted former police officer, as I do my best Greg Gutfeld imitation. What's kind of your thought on stop and frisk?
You're too tall to be a great
Yes, I know. I'm 6'3".
As am I. I was sitting next to him. The guy's tiny, and I'm like, what?
Like a Gutfeld and a half.
I told him to stand up, and he gave me a dirty look, and I was like, oh.
Lucy, I may need you to record that for me. You're listening to Saturday Night Cigar Lounge with Taylor Millard. He's a Gutfeld and a half.
Gutfeld and a half.
I'll never be on red eye if I do that, for sure.
I that's awesome. I may need to make that my ringtone for when Taylor calls me. It's a Gutfeld and a half, ringing it. That said, I tend to fall on the side of the Fourth Amendment. I understand the idea behind stop and frisk, but I also saw a deep amount of corruption in the police force, and it wasn't so much that it was widespread. You're going to find that, is there corruption in a police department? Yes. Is it widespread? Generally speaking, no. However, because politicians love to go after cops because it boosts their career further, the police will surround their own and protect them. So when you have something like stop and frisk, I don't see it as something that helps reduce crime. I see it as a policy that is ripe for abuse from the instant that it's created. For example, I happen to know, because of the motorcycles that I ride, I end up talking with a lot of police officers from Houston, all of the motorcycle police officers, because they're going to the same dealership that I go to. So I will sit and chat with them, and I'll ask them all kinds of questions, and they're more than happy to share with me. Now, they tell me that they technically, don't have, a certain number of tickets that they're supposed to write, but they do have quotas. It's not official, but there are quotas that they have to do. So they have to get a certain number of tickets. Now, if you have that with just traffic tickets where you have quotas, imagine what you're going to have with stop and frisk. And they already said it. There's quotas. When you create something like this, it's a policy that is ripe for abuse. And if there's one thing that I know about human behavior, is that the people are going to abuse power. So I say, fall back to the Fourth Amendment. Start there. Don't let people abuse it. Find a different way. This is my fundamental problem with this. We say, well, it works, and then we violate the Fourth Amendment. Well, if we're so smart as people, as individuals, as a collective, whatever, why is it that we can't take a look at the Fourth Amendment, say that's what it is, don't find a way around it, but find a better way to police, find a better way to enforce the laws without violating the Fourth Amendment? Why do we have to go with something that crosses a line or is up against the line, that's a gray area? Why do we have to dance in that gray area? Why can't we say, you know what, there's a completely better way to do this to get the same or even better results? And we don't even discuss that. We simply have the discussions about whether or not this is a good policy. And that's what bothers me the most. So I oppose something like this because we're violating people's Fourth Amendment rights right out the gate.
What if the Supreme Court doesn't see it that way? I mean, I totally agree with you, but there have been half a dozen Supreme Court decisions, including Kerry, in the past 50 or so years, that I think are completely in opposition to the Fourth Amendment, but, legally, they're not now because the Supreme Court said they're not. So,
and I disagree with those Supreme Court decisions. I'm going to be bluntly honest. I've seen quite a few Supreme Court decisions. I've carried the badge, or I've worn the badge, carried the gun. I understand that you want to protect, your brothers in arms that wear blue, or whatever color it is if you're a sheriff, etc. I just feel that there are better ways to do it, and some of these things are asinine to begin with. I also think you have to get into – there's a couple of them that have passed that when I actually read the text of what the Supreme Court said, what the headline said was not what the text said, so it was misleading, and that bothers me. But I feel like we err on the side of tyranny rather than erring on the side of freedom, and that for me is the fundamental problem. I want a better society also, but can't we find a better way to do it? And why don't we have that discussion?
Yes, we can.
Yes. That used to be an okay phrase.
I would like to respond to something Lucy asked, because she brought up quite rightly the percentages of the people that were stopped and frisked and had nothing on them. And I would just say that the reason you keep stop and frisk, even though most of the people that get frisked don't have anything on them, is if people know that there's a chance they could be searched, there's less of a chance they're going to take something in that could cause them harm. And if you don't believe that's, and if you want an example of where that's the case in another zone of law, take a look at concealed carry and why that works in states, and why states with concealed carry have less violent crime. It's because criminals know that there's a chance they're going to run up on somebody that's got a gun, and they're going to and there have been criminals that have been asked about it and have said themselves there's certain people that they didn't attack because they thought they might have a gun and they couldn't take the risk. As opposed to in other states, in states that don't have concealed carry, well, you don't have to worry about that because they're not allowed to carry it.
That's totally different, though. I mean, a concealed carry is Second Amendment. That's awesome. But
the principle's kind of the same. It's that
it's completely not the same because you're talking about a state actor searching you versus that private citizen might have a gun on them, so I shouldn't assault or rob them. It's not the same thing. You're equating a private citizen and a police officer who is legally permitted to track you down.
I don't mean to do that. I'm talking about the psychological effect that both laws have, and the psychological effect here is that if you know there's a chance you're going to get searched, then you might not carry something that's going to get you in trouble if you do get searched.
Of course that's true, but you can take that to the most dystopian, cliched extremes if you wanted to. I mean, that's not an easy way to draw a line. Is yes, if the police can pat you down, you probably won't have contraband. You're less likely to have it. That's true. If the police can walk in any time, you're less likely to have contraband in your house, et cetera, et cetera. That's not a very satisfying answer, even if it's practically true to an extent.
Well, but again, you're talking about walking inside of people's house, and in general, I mean, stop and frisk is generally something that's done on the street in a public place, and they're not going in your house, and because I mean, you're right about that. That sort of thing, just rolling up on somebody and entering their house without any kind of probable cause. Well, I mean, that's black letter. We know that that's not right, and we don't want that.
That's another conversation we could have about how easy it is for cops to do that now, thanks to the magic of extrajudicial circumstances. And I think I smell weed. I think that anonymous person who might exist, or said you had weed, so I'm kicking your door in. But the principle is the same. Like the objection to yes, if you get to search someone's person, they're less likely to have something illegal on them. Like I'm not disputing that. That's probably true. Does that end the conversation? I mean, I don't think it does.
All right. We have hit or about to be at the top of the hour. This is Saturday Night Cigar Lounge here on Vigilant Liberty Radio. Does everybody have time for overtime?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. So that means that we are going to do overtime. It's been a while since we've done overtime, but this discussion is a really fun one, and I'd like to keep that going. So this is Saturday Night Cigar Lounge here on Vigilant Liberty Radio. My guests tonight are Stefan Glaug, George Templeton, Peter Ream, and Lucy Steigerwald. Stefan, George, and Peter are from FreeRadicalNetwork.com, while Lucy is from Antiwar.com. You can also read her stuff at Rare as well, and Vice. She's also on Vice as well. So let's let me. Did I get all the websites, Lucy?
Yeah, that sounds good.
I love the fact that you just said that I was a tattler because of my comment on Twitter. Come on, yeah. I'm making you record it. I mean,
yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you touting all my good works because I was busy tweeting at you and ignoring what you were actually saying. I apologize for that.
I know plenty of people who just ignore me in general. So we are going to take a break. We will be right back after this. This is Saturday Night Cigar Lounge here on Vigilant Liberty Radio. When we come back, let's what we can do. Let's discuss police attitudes in general, because this is just something that I've noticed and something that a couple of other former military people have told me, is that these days when they become or when they get involved in the police, they see everybody as a suspect because they were trained that way in the military. I've had a couple of people say that, so let's discuss that. When we get back. This is Saturday Night Cigar Lounge here on Vigilant Liberty Radio. We will be right back right after this in about 15, 20 seconds or so. So back after this.
Hi, this is Mary Chastain of Breitbart News, and you're listening to Vigilant Liberty Radio.
You're listening to Saturday Night Cigar Lounge with Taylor right here